Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
What is this slop? Did you cook it with your feet? Victor growled and threw the plate on the floor. His mother burst into loud laughter, but when she heard the daughter-in-law's words, Diana herself couldn't pinpoint when exactly she stopped being a beloved wife and became a convenient, functional, self-learning household appliance designed to provide Victor with maximum comfort. And tonight was just another episode in the disturbing routine. "Sweetheart, what's for dinner?" the man asked loudly as soon as he entered the apartment and saw his wife's boots on the shoe rack. The young blonde, carrying a basin of laundry fresh from the washing machine, walked past her husband returning from work and voiced her frustration. "Victor, I've asked you 1,000 times not to call me that. By the way," she added, nodding at the basin she was holding, "you promised this morning you'd hang this up." "Diana, I've just been swamped and didn't have time," Victor said ingratiatingly. "Come on, don't be mad. I haven't eaten anything all day except that porridge you made this morning. I'm starving." Diana sighed. "For the record, I didn't have time for breakfast either, so who's more hungry is still up for debate. I can make some quick scrambled eggs if you want, but actually, the sushi should be here in about 10 minutes. I already placed the order. I just have no energy to cook today." "Perfect. Sushi is a better dinner than eggs anyway. I hope you ordered an extra portion of my favorite onigiri, right, Diana?" When she nodded, Victor blew her a kiss and disappeared into the bathroom, not even bothering to fix his earlier mistake and hang the laundry like he'd promised. Sighing again, Diana went to the balcony. Someone had to do it after all. She tried hard not to give in to the gloomy autumn mood, but the thoughts circling in her head were far from cheerful. It had only been a little over a year since the wedding, and yet their relationship had settled into something too smooth, too neighborly, certainly not passionate. "I should plan some kind of romantic surprise for Victor," Diana decided. "Not today, unfortunately, but maybe tomorrow. He'll probably go to the gym in the morning, and while he's out, I can cook something nice, get dressed up, and try to bring some warmth back into our marriage." But Diana's plan wasn't meant to come true. Skillfully working his chopsticks, Victor finished off 2 boxes of onigiri and, while choosing his next roll, casually dropped a bombshell. "Diana, my mom called today. She said we've totally forgotten about her. Said only her work is keeping her going, otherwise, after Dad's death, she feels completely unwanted." Diana wanted to remind him how unfair that was. After all, they'd even given her a dog to cheer her up and had just visited her on Tuesday evening. But she didn't even get a chance to speak before Victor shared a bit of news that turned her plans upside down. "I felt so ashamed, so I invited Mom over for the weekend. Ever since Dad passed, she's been in a constant state of melancholy, and I think it'll do her good to get out. You understand, right? A mother is sacred. I couldn't do anything else." "Eva actually agreed?" asked Diana, who had a complicated and ambiguous relationship with her own mother. She desperately hoped for a no, but Victor, swallowing another roll, cheerfully informed her. "Of course. We agreed that tomorrow, right after the gym, I'll pick her and Elsa up and bring them here by lunchtime. You'll have time to cook something nice. Mom wants to stop at a few shops on the way." Diana barely held back a sigh of frustration and disappointment. Victor hadn't even thought to consult her. Just a done deal, and now she had to scramble. She knew exactly how things would play out. He'd now fill himself with sushi, sip freshly brewed coffee, and settle on the couch to watch his usual Friday comedy. Meanwhile, she'd be left to clean up the apartment and figure out what to cook for the weekend and how to entertain her mother-in-law. It wouldn't normally be such a big deal, but the timing of it all was just awful. Her plan to reconnect with Victor was ruined, the exhaustion from the workweek had piled up, and worst of all, the personality of the upcoming guest had completely soured Diana's mood. Her short experience with marriage didn't just hint, it screamed that this wouldn't be a warm, family-oriented weekend, but a full-blown competition in veiled insults. Oh, without a doubt, if there were contests for delivering the most cutting remarks wrapped in friendly tones, Eva would win every prize. She never insulted directly or openly criticized, but she had a talent for hitting exactly where it hurt, subtly but painfully. The premiere of the Wicked Witch show happened right at the wedding. At first, Diana had taken the bait. In the middle of the celebration, Eva had sympathetically and quietly, but just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, said she felt sorry for the poor bride. "My son found a lovely girl, smart and beautiful. It's not her fault she lacks manners. No one was really there to raise her properly. Oh, there's a whole story behind that. You could make a soap opera out of it. Diana's mom left her husband for a lover, divorced, and left Diana with her father while she ran off abroad with her first love. Can you believe it? A mother who valued her carnal passions more than her family didn't even bother to show up for her daughter's wedding. Then who's the woman always buzzing around the bride's father? Isn't that her mother?" the mother-in-law's conversation partner clarified. "No, that's Diana's stepmother. Funny enough, they share the same name. Well, the bride explained to me that she's Diana, and her father's wife is called Josefa in the family. Honestly, I think that's a silly nickname. But I must say, my co-mother-in-law is quite a pleasant woman, very well educated, classy. Still, as we all know, no one can raise and comfort a child like their own mother." Because of the loud music, Diana could only catch fragments of the conversation, but the sympathetic glances guests kept throwing her way made the topic obvious. Eva was recounting the awkward and painful story of her new daughter-in-law's life. As luck would have it, Victor had wandered off from his young wife to prepare for a game the exuberant MC had organized with his friends. Her friend was dancing with the best man. Her father and stepmother swayed to a beautiful, goosebump-inducing slow rock ballad, and the girl in the white dress suddenly felt completely alone, defenseless, humiliated, and almost spat on by her mother-in-law's cruel remarks. What hurt the most was that Eva wasn't even lying. Yes, it was an ugly truth, a bitter and somewhat shameful one. But was a wedding really the place to air the failures and recklessness of a mother who had abandoned her daughter in the pursuit of personal happiness? Tears welled in her eyes, and nearly tripping, Diana hurried off toward the ladies' room. Her loyal friend Sophia, seeing the bride rush off, immediately followed her. It wasn't easy to get to the bottom of what had happened. Diana was too shaken. Sophia made her wash her face with cold water, and only then did the hysterics start to subside enough for Diana to explain why she had run off in tears. Sophia didn't fan the flames by voicing her own harsh opinion of the tactless mother-in-law. Instead, she gave the bride a critical look and said, "Okay, Diana, stay right here. Don't move a muscle. I'm going to grab your makeup bag and be right back. We've got to restore your beauty. You can't go back out there looking like this. Pull yourself together, girl. I'm coming." Later, Diana found out that Sophia had first gone to Josefa and told her that Eva had made her namesake cry, quickly summarizing what had happened. With the makeup bag in hand, she rushed back to fix the distressed bride's makeup. Meanwhile, Josefa went straight to the table where Eva sat like a reigning queen and asked point blank, "Tell me, dear lady, what exactly are you trying to accomplish? Why ruin this celebration with filthy gossip? Who twisted your arm to tell everyone at your own son's wedding such a miserable story, one where Diana, mind you, is the true victim? Yes, her parents got divorced, but you're a grown, reasonable woman. Surely you understand she bears no fault in that." Eva blinked her thick, fake lashes and feigned surprise. "Oh my, I never meant to upset Diana. On the contrary, I said she's a wonderful girl and that she's not to blame for her poor upbringing. She has such deep psychological trauma, it's bound to leave a mark. That's just a fact. How can anyone be offended by facts?" Josefa wasn't moved by such an excuse. In an icy tone, she said, "Let me make this clear, we will not allow anyone to mistreat our Diana." While fixing her makeup, Sophia kept chatting to distract her friend from her gloomy thoughts. "Can you believe how your namesake marched up to your mother-in-law? She had such a look in her eyes it actually scared me for a second. Luckily, I know your stepmother's a just woman. If you don't mess with her family, you're safe. But I doubt that gossiping which will get off easy. Honestly, Eva's got such nerve. She's just an admin at a medical center, but acts like a top doctor who saved humanity from a pandemic. Diana couldn't help but smile, and Sophia quickly seized the moment to solidify that flicker of positivity. Your mother-in-law's like a peacock. All feathers and no substance. You'd never guess she just schedules appointments and handles billing. But she sure knows how to sell herself. When Diana returned to the hall with her loyal friend in tow, she was met by a worried Victor and his slightly embarrassed-looking mother. Eva had clearly already presented her version of the story to her son. He turned to his young wife with concern. "Sweetheart, you're probably just overwhelmed. That's why you're reacting so strongly to what were really just harmless comments." Sophia, standing behind Diana, was already making warning gestures, and Victor wisely stopped talking. Eva took over. "Really, I'm even ready to apologize, though I never meant to hurt you." That evening, Eva did in fact apologize to Diana, but it became immediately clear there was not a shred of sincerity behind it. Unfortunately, the bride quickly realized that her mother-in-law had no intention of holding her tongue. Her words were more poisonous than a toadstool. Diana directly told her that she didn't appreciate the baseless criticism, but Eva would just widen her eyes in mock innocence and insist she meant no harm. Instinctively, the young woman held back from telling her husband about his mother's behavior, and her best friend supported that decision. Smart move. Victor might seem reasonable, but one wrong word about his family, and they'll twist it all. The only way would be to secretly record her, then play it back for him, let him hear the snide remarks and venomous lectures given with the best intentions, of course. But soon, Diana realized something even worse. Most of the time, her husband didn't just side with his mother, he stood behind her like an unshakable mountain. The situation grew even more unbearable after the sudden death of her father-in-law from a detached blood clot. Naturally, Eva needed support, and Diana truly sympathized, but her mother-in-law's personality became even more caustic than before. The hardest part came during the 40th day memorial for the father-in-law. For some reason, Eva was firmly convinced that the commemoration meal absolutely had to be held at home. Dabbing away invisible tears with a paper tissue, she explained. Until 40 days after death, souls of the departed remain where they lived, and then they say goodbye to their earthly existence. Let Antonio see who came to remember him. So it's not even up for discussion, the memorial will be here. And we'll cook everything ourselves. Antonio would appreciate that. We'll only order the pies. You clearly can't manage them, and I have no strength at all. Diana couldn't say no to her grieving mother-in-law. Sophia, how could she not be there in such a tough moment, found out what her kind-hearted friend had agreed to and promised to help. Diana was relieved, even though she felt guilty for burdening someone so close. But Sophia was a chef both by profession and by calling, and that meant the support would be not only moral but also practical. Without her, things would have been truly grim. Still, Diana soon regretted agreeing to act as a cook for the memorial feast. Her mother-in-law hovered around the kitchen, giving orders and occasionally clutching her chest. "My God!" Eva would exclaim theatrically, raising her hands as though calling on the ceiling and all above it as witnesses. "This is just unthinkable. Diana, stop at once and watch how cabbage should be shredded." It didn't matter that Eva herself wasn't managing any better, or that the food processor was broken and Diana had to chop everything by hand anyway, just the way she'd been doing it before the interference. Eva didn't pick on Sophia, realizing that she wouldn't tolerate it, even for a friend, and after all, the food still needed to be made, and it was too late to place an order. The restless widow was already regretting this whole ordeal herself, but couldn't stop criticizing her daughter-in-law. "No, this is impossible, Diana. Where did you learn to peel potatoes like that? Disgraceful." "There's hardly anything left of the potato," she snapped. Even though Diana was peeling so thinly, the skin was practically transparent. "What? You've never cooked rice for Cutia? Why are you adding so much butter? It'll be inedible. Oh, holy saints, why did you chop the mushrooms so coarsely? What is this approach? Just hack it up and done. Diana, remember what this food is for, show some respect. Don't skimp on the sugar, you're not cooking for strangers. And what are these dried fruits? Did you find them in a dumpster? Is that supposed to be raisins? They look like dead cockroaches. And the apricots? Are you blind? Couldn't you tell they were pre-boiled? Useless. Into this tirade came Sophia's cheerful voice. Actually, the correct word is useless for a man. When the mother-in-law turned her annoyed gaze to Sophia, the girl calmly explained, stirring the contents of a pan. You should direct your complaints about the dried fruit to Victor. He went to the market, not Diana. It was hard to fluster Eva, but Sophia managed. After a few seconds of silence, the mother-in-law resumed criticizing Diana about something else, seemingly forgetting about the unfortunate dried fruit bought by her son. Diana, is that how you wash dishes? You're lazy. Scrub both sides 3 times with baking soda, rinse, and only then pass them along. There will be many high-ranking people coming to remember Antonio, and you and your friends seem determined to make me die of embarrassment. Tired of inventing new reasons to scold, Eva once again clutched her chest as though her heart was aching. Oh, that's it, Diana, you've shamed my gray hairs. I'm going to lie down, I feel awful. You've worn me out. While Eva graciously rested, Diana and her friend managed to finish most of the work and sat down to snack on tea and some food from the containers Sophia had thoughtfully brought from work. When Eva, like a majestic battleship, sailed back into the kitchen, even this snack came under fire. It's very unhealthy to store food in plastic. Sophia and Diana nodded in unison but kept chewing. Eva cast them a disapproving glance and ordered, Diana, come on, wrap this up. Tomorrow will be a hard day. Sophia took the hint and began gathering her things. Diana decided to walk her friend to the entrance to wait for the taxi and calm down. While they waited, Sophia quietly suggested, Listen, why don't you just come with me? Let Victor handle the dishes tomorrow. Let him serve, clean, and cater to his mother. Eva's got a great setup, dumped all the work on you and is enjoying herself while bossing you around. You know, even the most difficult customers couldn't match that woman's attitude. Come on, take a break. Stay at my place or go to your family, you've got keys, right? Tomorrow, come like a guest, sit through it like everyone else, and leave. I swear, Victor's mom is trying to turn you into Cinderella. No, Sophia, I can't. And I'm not doing this for Eva, I'm doing it in memory of Antonio. He never got in our way and, honestly, I think he treated me quite well. Suit yourself. But keep in mind, if it becomes too much, grab a taxi and leave. The friend said goodbye when the car arrived, and the next day unfolded exactly as Sophia had predicted. Eva sat next to a photo of her late husband with a sorrowful expression, giving Diana instructions in a quiet voice. Yet even the tone in which she spoke the most innocent phrases made it clear to everyone present that the poor woman had to put up with the incompetence and sloppiness of her daughter-in-law. She had to go through this ordeal alone. Her father and stepmother were away on an extended business trip, Sophia had a work shift she couldn't get out of, and Diana's husband Victor offered no support, he was busy socializing with the guests. From then on, Diana tried to distance herself from her poisonous mother-in-law. It seemed like it should have been easy enough, just limit contact. But there were always some important reasons that made the son and his wife drop everything and rush over to Eva's. As a result, she became more and more embedded in her son's family and poisoned the atmosphere. Holidays and casual visits had long turned into grueling tests for Diana, and she expected nothing good from the upcoming weekend. As Diana had predicted, Victor completely removed himself from any cleaning or cooking. She was left alone to tidy up the apartment and figure out a decent lunch from whatever was in the fridge. It wasn't until deep into the night, when her husband was already sound asleep, that Diana finally sat down at the kitchen table and started making a shopping list for the next morning. Thankfully, she'd found a piece of meat in the freezer, so the list wasn't too long. She assumed her husband would buy a few extra things at the store, things she wouldn't need directly for lunch. But in the morning, when she asked him, Victor protested. Come on, don't make a big deal out of it. You'll get the groceries yourself. I won't have time. Mom will probably drag me around clothing boutiques. So just buy everything, okay? If it's too heavy, call a cab. Victor mixed himself a protein shake for breakfast, poured it into a sports bottle, and dashed off to the gym. Diana had no choice but to get ready and head to the store herself. Because of the time spent shopping, she had to cook in a near-emergency mode. She chose a reliable, tasty recipe her friend had once shared. Fortunately, she knew it well and could count on it to turn out right. She even had time to change from her comfy but stretched out sweats into a nicer home outfit. When Eva arrived, followed shortly by Victor, dragging a small dog on a leash and carrying a bulky sports bag, Diana tried to take a discreet deep breath and calm herself. But her mother-in-law started complaining immediately. Couldn't you have put a little bench in the hallway? I'm not 16 anymore to be hopping around on one leg trying to unzip my shoes. Hang on, Mom, I'll let the dog go, drop my things, and help you take your shoes off, Victor replied eagerly, but Eva scoffed. Why should it all be you, dear son? What, your wife's spine will snap and her arms will fall off if she shows a little care for her mother-in-law. The tension rose, but the scene was saved by the energetic little dog, who, once released, darted off to the kitchen and started knocking things over. Eva rolled her eyes in disapproval and grumbled at her daughter-in-law. Well, what are you waiting for? Go catch Elsa before she makes a mess. Honestly, I have to teach you everything. Diana didn't have to bow to her mother-in-law. She lured the dog with a treat, grabbed her by the collar, shut the kitchen door behind them, and returned the pup to Eva. Eva immediately made a face. Why are you gripping poor Elsa like a hawk? Let her run around. Or do you think I'll keep my dog on a leash like some prisoner in chains? The thin leather strap looked more like an elegant accessory than actual restraints, but Diana wisely decided it was not the time to voice her opinion and instead invited everyone to the table. Victor chimed in. You go ahead without me, I'll just take a quick shower and join you. Oh no, Sonny, Eva protested. Start eating without the head of the family? That's just bad manners. We'll wait. Freshen up as long as you need. In the meantime, Diana and I will have a little girl talk. Her sugary tone only made Diana more anxious, but what could she do? She wasn't about to beg her husband to skip his shower. Let him relax after the gym and shopping trip. She would manage to survive until his return. Diana also noticed that her husband took not just his laundry to the bathroom but also his smartphone. Of course, like most modern people, he was never far from his device, but recently he hadn't been parting with it at all. He claimed it was because of an important project that was currently under negotiation and required him to be constantly reachable to respond to messages instantly. He said that if the contract went through, they'd finally be able to afford a house in the countryside. Probably through a mortgage, but still. Victor painted a vivid picture of how lovely it would be to walk out onto the veranda early in the morning, sit in a wicker chair wrapped in a blanket, and bask in pastoral peace. Diana liked the sound of that, but she also knew the reality behind that pretty picture involved hard work and significant financial investment. Victor had even started talking about selling their city apartment to ease the burden of a mortgage, but both her stepmother and her friend advised strongly against it. Diana herself had spoken quite harshly on the matter, using not-so-nice words to describe both Victor and his mother. Lost in thoughts about her husband's behavior and their potential future in the countryside, Diana was suddenly yanked back to the present by her mother-in-law's sharp voice. Are you going to keep me standing in the hallway forever? Where are my slippers? I can't see them anywhere, and you could have taken care of that in advance. Honestly, how disorganized can you be? Am I supposed to stand here all weekend? Are you sleepwalking or what? Diana, who was in fact completely exhausted after all the unexpected cleaning and cooking, didn't bother explaining and simply said politely, Please, come into the living room, Eva. Her mother-in-law scoffed and mimicked her. In the living room? You might as well have said the hall or the salon. A 12-square-meter room can't be called a living room. It's a kennel. That's the right word. It even feels cramped in here. Of course, Diana wanted badly to respond that, as far as she knew, there were no official regulations about how big a room had to be called a living room. It was more about function than square footage. But she had decided in advance not to react to provocative jabs and was still trying to stick to that strategy, though with every minute it was getting harder. Eva kept tossing out little barbs and criticized everything she saw. She called the roller blinds pathetic, the lack of a rug on the floor foolish, and even deigned to explain. Victor has hated slippers since childhood. Even when it's cold, he walks around barefoot, and that's very bad. He'll catch a chill. And you're on the ground floor here. Diana, you need to take care of your womanly health. You still need to bear children for my son. By the way, there's a new gynecologist at our clinic. She's an old friend of mine. I'll book you an appointment. You'll get a discount as my daughter-in-law. Just say yes. Let Carla Prieto take a look and figure out why I still don't have any grandchildren. Diana shuddered at the very idea that her mother-in-law and her gynecologist friend would be discussing her reproductive health. She had no doubt they would, and tried to decline as politely as possible. No, thank you, Eva. That won't be necessary. I see my regular doctor. Eva didn't like her daughter-in-law's firm tone. Scanning the room again, she spotted the tableware set Diana had recently bought and placed on the table. With a sneer, she remarked, "My dog's food bowl looks more decent than that." Actually, Diana couldn't help but reply, this set was made at the porcelain factory that's now called the Imperial. I picked a modern design, but the quality is still traditionally high. Eva pressed her hands to her cheeks in mock despair. Oh, Diana, my poor, naive girl. It's clear they duped you with some junk. I bet they charged you a fortune too. No sense at all. She turned over one of the empty plates, scrutinized the stamp underneath, then put it back and delivered her verdict. Yes, this set is a complete failure. So plain, so cheap looking. Who are they hiring as designers over there? And you, how could you fall for such tackiness? Have you no taste at all? You should have consulted Victor, or better yet, me. If you were so desperate to act independently, at least use some common sense and go for the cobalt net pattern. Now that would have shown taste, tradition, style, classic luxury. But these little student-grade doodles? I'd be embarrassed to show these to real guests. I'll tolerate it, though, I'm the mother-in-law. Eva's lecture on acceptable festive dishware was cut short by Victor entering the room, a smartphone in one hand and smoothing his damp hair with the other. Glancing disapprovingly at the table, he turned to Diana. So, are we going to eat today? Of course. The appetizers are already on the table, as you can see. I'll slice some bread now, then bring out the beef stroganoff with mashed potatoes. Eva grimaced and whispered to her son. Honestly, Diana has no sense of appropriateness, serving such plain food to her mother-in-law. She didn't even try. Thank goodness she didn't go for pasta with hot dogs. Diana, of course, heard everything but chose not to react. She brought the main course and wished them both a pleasant meal. Victor, meanwhile, was busy typing away on his phone. Eva gave her son a stern look and ordered, "Victor, do me a favor, put the phone down and eat properly. It'll help your digestion." Victor didn't appreciate being bossed around by his mother and chose to vent his irritation on his wife. After tasting the beef stroganoff, he pulled a face like he'd bitten a lemon, set his fork down, and declared, "Well, my dear, you've really outdone yourself today. What an astounding dish you've served." Diana stared at him, puzzled. His expression and words were completely at odds. Besides, she had already tasted the food while cooking and knew it was tender and delicious. Victor added sarcastically, "What are you staring at me for like a cow at a new gate? It's absolute garbage." Diana, not understanding what was going on, took a bite of the mashed potatoes and asked, "Victor, what's going on? Are your taste buds off?" "I'm telling you, it's fine, both the meat and the potatoes. I just tasted it myself." But Victor wouldn't let up. I'm telling you honestly, I've never eaten anything this awful. It feels like you cooked it with your feet, not your hands." With that, he hurled his full plate onto the floor. Eva, who had been silently observing the argument, now wore a gleeful smile. She was clearly enjoying her disliked daughter-in-law's discomfort and fully approved of her son's behavior. With fake concern, she pressed her palms to her cheeks and addressed the dog, who had perked up at the smell of food. "Elsa, darling, don't eat that. We'll have to take you to the vet." She daintily sniffed the food on her plate but didn't copy her son's dramatic gesture. Instead, she simply pushed her plate aside and muttered, "She can't even cook, let alone give me a grandchild. So useless." Eva burst into laughter when Elsa tried the meat, then recoiled and began shaking her head vigorously. Victor remarked sarcastically, "See, Diana, even the dog doesn't like it. She knows it might not be safe." The living room filled with malicious giggles. Diana remained silent, unable to understand why her mother-in-law and husband were demeaning all her efforts. The verbal jabs from Eva were painful, but it was her husband's brazen and unfair outburst that finally broke her patience. Maybe she should have stayed silent for the sake of the family. But suddenly, Diana realized there was nothing left to hold on to. Whatever existed between her and Victor now, it certainly wasn't a family. Cohabitation? Roommates? Anything but love. The young woman saw clearly that she didn't want to, and wouldn't, tolerate this disrespect any longer. It took effort to suppress the initial urge to dump the salad bowl on her arrogant husband's head or hurl a plate of sandwiches, complete with the liver pâté Eva so adored, at her mother-in-law. The scene would have been quite something. But Diana's upbringing held her back. She watched in despair as Elsa cleaned the floor, nibbling at the bits of meat that had flown off the plate and cooled, then shrugged and said calmly, "Victor, Eva, even a Michelin-starred chef couldn't please you too." Eva bit into a sandwich, let out a surprised sound, and said, "Well, at least you managed to spread the pâté on the bread without ruining it. Now clean up that thing you called a cutlet and bring us something edible." Diana didn't move. She calmly picked up her smartphone, opened an app, and declared, "Well then, my not-so-dear guests, since you don't like my cooking, I won't force you to eat it. In 40 minutes, a car will be waiting for you outside. Get ready." "You mean we're going to a restaurant by taxi?" Eva asked, surprised. "I hope you picked a decent place," Victor added. "Actually, you should have just ordered delivery." "Yeah, who wants to go out now? Just cancel the reservation and order something here. I'll tell you what I feel like eating," he finished. "No," Diana replied calmly, though a storm raged inside her. "You're not going to a restaurant or even a cafe. You're going home, Eva. There, you can order whatever you like and smash all the plates you want." "You can't be serious," Eva protested. "You have no right to throw me and my mother out," Victor said indignantly. "Why not?" Diana asked, feigning surprise. "I most certainly can. I won't even make you or Eva clean up the mess on the floor. Thank Elsa for that." She glanced at her phone screen and repeated, "Start getting ready. Don't keep the driver waiting, he'll be here in 35 minutes. I'll even cover the fare, just to be rid of your company faster." Realizing that Diana was serious, Victor gave in to the idea of leaving for a while and asked, "Why should we take a taxi? Those drivers are always weird, and the cars stink. If you're kicking us out so rudely, we might as well go in the car, right, Mom?" Eva pursed her lips and nodded, but Diana suddenly spoke, firm and unwavering. "Because, dear unhinged Victor, you're going to hand over the car keys. Right now." "Why on earth would I do that?" Victor shot back. "Isn't it enough that you nearly poisoned us, and now you want to take my car too? Unbelievable." Diana laughed, leaving both Eva and Victor stunned, then clarified. "Victor, maybe that imaginary crown on your head is squeezing your brain. The car has nothing to do with you. It was bought with money given to me by my father and Josefa, and my mom also helped. She wired money to my card. But they gave that to you as a wedding gift, Victor argued. So the money was meant for both of us. We used it to buy the car, so I have every right to drive it. I'm listed on the insurance, too. A cop pulled me over recently and didn't say a word, so there's no issue. Exactly. The car was purchased during the marriage, Eva chimed in. So half of it belongs to my son. And about the apartment renovation Victor helped with, you owe him for that too. Don't think you're going to profit off my son, don't even dream of it. You'll be dividing everything you have, like it or not. The law is on our side. Diana laughed again and decided to return some of Eva's own sarcasm. Oh, Eva, you're so naive. Do you really think my father, with his law degree and decades of experience, didn't cover all the legal bases? Especially after meeting you? He actually advised me to cancel the wedding after that. He warned me about Victor, said he was arrogant, selfish, not too bright, and likely to cheat from time to time. Of course, I was wearing rose-colored glasses and didn't want to hear it. Watch your mouth, Diana. Victor snapped. You can't go around calling people names. Mom, I'm going to warm up the car and then I'll come get you and Elsa so you don't have to wait outside. And you, sweetheart, think about your behavior. When you realize you were wrong, give me a call. If you apologize properly, maybe, just maybe, I'll forgive you. Diana sighed, and like explaining to a stubborn child, began to spell things out for her husband and his mother. As she spoke, Victor and Eva's faces grew longer and more drawn. First of all, don't call me sweetheart. Second, it turns out my dad was right. Victor, you really are kind of stupid. Do you actually think that after everything you pulled today, I'll call and apologize to you? That's delusional. Also, you're not fooling anyone with your little texting session earlier. You think I'm blind, deaf, and dumb? And as for your greed, it's obvious. You're both ready to rip out each other's teeth over what you think is jointly owned. But your math is off. Thirdly, the car you love to drive is registered in my stepmother's name. So, Victor, if you dare disobey me and get behind the wheel right now, Diana Josefa will immediately report the car as stolen to the relevant authorities. Believe me, this can be done remotely, from anywhere in the world. Then you'll have to prove that your documents are in order. By the way, just so you know, Josefa won't retract her statement. She told me at the end of the wedding that if anything happened, she wouldn't show mercy. And believe me, Josefa keeps her word. Diana didn't stop her husband, who rushed into the hallway to check what was printed in the documents, and turned to her mother-in-law. Eva, why are you standing there like a statue? I'm serious. Get ready. And help your dear son pack at least his essentials. Time is running out before the taxi arrives. Victor, flushed with anger, returned to the living room and began yelling at his wife. Diana, you're a fraud. Why didn't you tell me right away that the car is registered to Josefa, not you, sweetheart? It's unbelievable how you pulled this off. Cheats. This is some kind of scam. Don't give a legal opinion on something you don't understand, Diana interrupted her husband's rant. The fact that you didn't bother to ask how I registered the car or read the documents in over a year just shows that you couldn't care less. But whose fault is that? By the way, for your information, you can be punished for making false accusations against me and my family. And I'll repeat again, don't call me sweetheart. Eva snatched the pink slip from her son's hands, took her glasses out of the case, and began scrutinizing the printed information. The text clearly didn't please her, and she even tried to tear up the certificate, but the laminated paper wouldn't tear. Diana stood up, took the document from her mother-in-law's hands, and asked, Victor, Eva, what's taking you so long? Get ready and leave my apartment. If you were hoping I'd lose my temper after that rude act with the miserable cutlet and that the argument would lead to a divorce, congratulations. You got what you wanted. But I still can't understand how Victor married me just to make a profit after a divorce. Oh, dear, are you really that greedy? I'm shocked. Eva fumed. How dare you? You've stripped my son bare and now you're mocking him. Money was gifted to you both for the wedding, and I can prove it. I'll bring a ton of witnesses. They'll all testify about how much money you received as a wedding gift. Eva, Diana spoke quietly, you're acting ridiculous right now. No guest at the wedding disclosed the amount of their gift. They all put their envelopes in the beautiful box, if you recall, but they didn't announce the total publicly. If you're planning to pressure your acquaintances into testifying otherwise, don't forget to mention the criminal responsibility for giving false testimony. Honestly, the punishment for that crime, as I remember from the law code I read as a child, isn't severe, but why cause unnecessary trouble for people? Diana looked at her smartphone screen and urged the people who were surely about to become strangers to her. The time before the car arrives is getting shorter. Get ready, I'm telling you again. Victor, why are you just standing there? Pack your things, I said. In a state of shock, the man obeyed his wife's order and went to the bedroom. Eva, however, was a tougher nut to crack and began lecturing her almost former daughter-in-law. I thought you were a meek girl, but you managed to deceive me. You're quite the actress, I wouldn't have guessed it. But don't think Victor and I are going to let this slide and just walk away. Oh no, Diana retorted with a laugh, I'm not that naive. Stop laughing. Eva screeched. Do you think you and your father and stepmother have fooled us? Well, think again. She made a gesture with her fingers and shook her fist in the air. We will definitely go to court. We'll demand compensation for the repairs and a division of the gifts, which we can prove you received. Please, Diana replied calmly, that's your right. But now, honestly, get out of my apartment. Victor, she called her husband, who entered the living room with a determined look, intending to pack the TV off the wall, don't rush. If we're being fair, that's also joint property. We won't saw it in half, but when dividing, we'll account for the cost minus depreciation and the loss in value because the model is outdated. And by the way, don't forget to return the car keys. Just a little something. And when you go to fight for your alleged violated rights, don't forget I can file a counterclaim, or rather, my father can. I hope you got my hint, right, Victor? Eva commanded. Son, take photos of everything that this greedy woman still has in her hands, just in case she replaces the good stuff with junk and says it was always like that. Don't worry, Eva, Diana said sweetly, pretending to comfort her mother-in-law. I'm not capable of outdoing you and Victor in treachery, no matter how hard I try. I won't do anything to his belongings. Later, we'll arrange a meeting, and he can pick up everything that's left. Also, I kindly ask you not to damage my property. The car is under surveillance cameras, and the apartment is connected to the security system. In case of any incidents, I can guarantee a real, albeit short, sentence for hooliganism. Just so you know, I won't be lenient. The rest of the packing took place in almost complete silence. Victor angrily slammed cupboard doors, Eva sighed and sniffled, while Elsa, tangled up underfoot, occasionally yelped when her angry mistress or grim son stepped on her paw. Maybe Victor, now almost a bachelor again, would have continued to drag out the packing, but at one point Diana declared, "That's it, please leave with your things, and don't forget the dog." "Wow, you can be quite sarcastic," Victor growled, and Diana easily retorted. "I had a genius teacher, didn't I, Eva? By the way, one question is really bothering me. Why did you even allow Victor to marry me if you hated me from the moment you laid eyes on me? I'm still bitter about what you did at our wedding. And as for all the things you've said to me over the past year, I'll remain silent. Wouldn't it have been simpler to just forbid Victor from marrying me? Why all this farce, if your only dream was our divorce? I just don't get it." Eva gave her daughter-in-law an icy look and sneered through her teeth. "You'll learn a lot, and soon you'll grow old." Victor deliberately dropped the car keys on the floor and, after hauling about 10 bags and boxes to the landing, didn't even think to say goodbye to the woman he had recently declared his love for. Eva proudly carried a bag with her son's documents, and in her other hand, she gripped the leash so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Elsa fussed around, seemingly sensing her owner's agitated state, and kept getting underfoot. Diana didn't wait for the landing to empty and closed the door. She could only hope that all the worst had stayed on the other side. But no matter how hard she tried to convince herself that nothing had affected her, a nagging feeling lingered. She had once loved Victor so deeply that it had taken her father a lot of effort to persuade her to register the car in her stepmother's name. Diana had protested back then, saying it was unnecessary caution, and had only agreed because her father had become so nervous that he had to call a doctor. Josefa had also joined in the persuasion, promising that if the deception was ever uncovered, she would take the blame with Victor. By the way, it had been her father and stepmother who had warned her never to sell her pre-marriage apartment to invest in joint property with her husband. However, by the time Victor had brought it up, her rose-colored glasses had already cracked. The man, so attentive and affectionate during their courtship, mostly displayed negative traits in their legal marriage. And then there was Eva as a mother-in-law. No, this happiness was starting to feel like a burden, and today, that boil had finally burst. But still, for some reason, she felt down. Diana didn't want to spoil the weekend for her father and her namesake with news of the scandal with her husband and mother-in-law. Besides, she had no desire to share her inner turmoil with her mother, who had long since started another family and had other children. The only option left was to call her loyal friend. Fortunately, Sophia was off that day and answered almost immediately. Upon hearing that Diana had fought with her husband and wanted to talk, the girl suggested, "Let's go to a sushi bar. It's usually not too crowded at this time, and we'll be able to talk in peace." "No, Sophia, it's better if you come to me. I don't have sushi or rolls, but I do have cutlets and mashed potatoes made from your recipe." "That's nice, but don't you want to unwind for a change?" "Sophia, I'm not in the mood for a simple distraction. I've had a full-on fight with Victor, and he took some of his things and went with his mother to her apartment." Sophia snorted. "Oh, I knew that troublemaker would be involved. It's definitely time to celebrate your liberation from the mother-in-law's yoke." Diana admitted what bothered her about her friend's idea. "I forgot to grab the spare keys from Victor and Eva. I only demanded the car keys." Sophia cheerfully replied, "Don't worry, it's understandable to be disoriented when your life falls apart. I get it. Until you change the locks, you're basically a prisoner. Victor and his crazy mother don't have brains, they have breadcrumbs, but they can cause trouble. But that's not a reason to be upset. I'll be at your place in half an hour, and you can tell me everything over a cup of tea." While Diana was confiding in her friend about the recent events, a heated discussion was taking place between Eva and Victor. They rode in the taxi in silence, but each had something to say. At home, Eva stopped holding back and immediately began scolding her son. "Victor, what were you thinking? Diana pulled off such a scam right under your nose, and you." The man vehemently disagreed with that description and retorted, "Why do you think I wasn't paying attention? Diana and I picked the car together, by the way. I just went to the dacha with the guys to celebrate the purchase, and Diana was the one who stayed behind to deal with all the paperwork." "What an idiot!" Eva scolded. "While you were off celebrating with your buddies at the dacha, your crafty wife registered the car in her stepmother's name. So now, how do we claim half the car's value from Diana? We could say, with a few witnesses, that the money for the car came from the wedding gifts. But the documents show the legal owner is her stepmother." Victor was silent, unable to come up with any arguments in his defense. And Eva delivered her verdict. "Well, you're a fool, in one word, son." After that, the man was outraged. "And what about me, Mom? You're no better. Why on earth did you come up with that ridiculous spectacle of throwing food? I could have kept living with Diana, and maybe she would have let me take something from her." Eva sighed as she placed the kettle on the stove. "Ugh, you're really slow on the uptake, son. Nothing would have come from Diana. It was clear she wasn't going to sell her apartment. Why waste time with that fool?" Victor smiled and began rummaging through his mom's fridge to calm his nerves with something tasty. Eva, watching her grown son, began to reassure him. "It's fine, now we'll try to get at least a chunk from this lousy sheep, then we'll start looking for other options." We have a few clients at the clinic who are pretty promising, with money and not too sharp. Next time, we'll pick a girl who's even dumber and doesn't have any lawyers in her circle. We'll aim for someone like the girl in the movie, you know, marry an orphan. That's our new plan. And as for Diana, I'll figure out a way to get back at her. The divorce process was in full swing when Eva launched her campaign to destroy the reputation of her almost ex-daughter-in-law. Pretending to sigh, she seized every opportunity to complain about her supposed treachery. To the director, who was friendly with the administrator, sometimes had tea with her after work, and attended Victor and Diana's wedding, the woman seemed to reluctantly admit, "Oh, Isabel, such sorrow in our family. Victor is divorcing Diana. Victor can't accept that she brought her lover into their marital bed. Of course, she swore it was a momentary lapse, a spontaneous impulse, a silly mistake, but, as you can see, considering how Diana's mother behaved, it's all quite logical. You can't erase those genes. At least they didn't manage to have kids. I was upset, I worried, but I guess it was for the best in God's will." Isabel was involuntarily surprised. Really? I never would have thought Diana capable of such a thing. From what I saw at the wedding, she seemed like a pleasant, mild woman, modest and loving toward Victor. "Oh, Isabel." Eva sighed again, feigning maternal sorrow. "In still waters, as they say, the worst demons dwell. And now I don't know how to protect my son from an irreparable mistake. Poor Victor, he's in such a depressed state that I fear he might harm himself. I've tried everything to lift his spirits, but it's as if the world has lost its meaning without Diana. She, the impudent one, didn't even come to see us once. Maybe if she dared, Victor would feel better." Diana had no idea that unpleasant rumors about her were already circulating in the city. Of course, in the modern world, the lives of ordinary people weren't as intriguing, but Eva's colorful descriptions of the fictional downfall of her daughter-in-law ensured the gossip spread far and wide. Before Diana even became officially divorced, the story of the poor man, who had fallen into a deep apathy due to his wife's betrayal, reached the kitchen of the restaurant where Sophia worked. To Sophia's great surprise, the girl listened to the rather entertaining version of her friend's family life. Carefully, Sophia asked the storyteller to clarify. "By any chance, do you know the name of this amorous woman?" "Of course I do, Diana. I've forgotten her last name. If you need it, I can find out. Her mother-in-law works as an administrator at the medical center I visit sometimes. But you know what? It's not even about the name. It's about how treacherous she is. From the start, she didn't want to live with her husband because she didn't want to take his last name. He did everything for her, and then when she realized the divorce was inevitable, she kicked him out with just a bag of his documents, wearing whatever he had on. A piranha, she drained all the life out of him and moved on to someone else, someone more promising." Sophia, who knew what had actually happened from her friend, barely managed to hold back. If she defended Diana now, it would only hurt her friend more. Defending her meant admitting guilt. No, Sophia had to act more subtly and cleverly, and even better, she needed to get Josefa involved. Diana's stepmother would surely come up with something extraordinary. Mentally congratulating herself for having the foresight to get Josefa's phone number, Sophia called and soon explained the problem. After listening to the girl, Diana's stepmother asked, "Sophia, try to keep Diana unaware of the rumors swirling around her for at least 2 or 3 days. I'll try to come and solve the problem in person. Just send me the name of the center where Eva works. I'll handle it perfectly." Timing her visit to the medical center for the day when Eva's shift was over, Josefa managed, thanks to her persistence and charm, to secure a meeting with Isabel, the center's director. Isabel seemed surprised but agreed to hear out the visitor who had come for a rather strange reason. "I want to tell you something you probably already have some idea about," according to Eva. "Unfortunately, this woman has been quite deceitful. Diana is the victim of her malicious tongue, and I'm here to set the record straight. I met Diana's father when she was just 15, at the most difficult age, but I assure you, she's an extraordinary girl. Diana could have been vindictive, prevented her father from seeing me, but instead, she acted like a wise adult and let us work through our own feelings. Wounded by her mother's betrayal, she took responsibility and became, if not my daughter or close friend, then at least my companion. I assure you, Eva has seriously distorted the facts. Isabel lazily glanced at her smartwatch and asked, "So, what do you want from me?" "Nothing from you. I just want to warn you that Eva's duplicity and cunning could harm not only my friend but also your business. You should check if all the money is making it to the cash register." Diana's next visit was to her son-in-law. Upon seeing her in his office, Victor froze and agreed to step out into the smoking room just to avoid embarrassing himself in front of his colleagues, one of whom was a potential future victim. Josefa caught the worried glance from Victor and subtly adjusted her prepared speech. "Well, Victor, I won't beat around the bush. You're renouncing any property claims against Diana. Or, I promise, your marriage will be declared invalid because you were motivated by selfish interests. In that case, you'll have to return many items. And I'll make sure both you and your mother are held responsible for moral damages, and there'll also be a defamation lawsuit, understood?" Victor nodded. It was only now that he was beginning to realize that the situation had completely spiraled out of control. That evening, Eva greeted her son at home in a rage. "Thanks to Diana's stepmother, I've lost my job." She hinted to Isabel that I was pocketing money, and after a quick inspection, they found a lot of violations. "So, starting tomorrow, I'm officially unemployed." "What a bunch of fools," Victor cursed. She came to me too and gave me an ultimatum. After some thought, mother and son decided to renounce any rights to Diana's property. Who knew what Josefa might come up with next? For Diana, her stepmother's visit was a real celebration, even more joyful than the divorce. They had a wonderful time together. Occasionally, Sophia joined them, and one day, she introduced them to her classmate. Miguel wasn't as charismatic as Victor, but Diana was drawn to him because of their similar outlook on life. When the young couple decided to marry, it didn't surprise their acquaintances. They made a perfect pair. In her new marriage, Diana finally understood the true meaning of simple words: there are no flaws in people you love.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.